I am Michael DeVellis, and this is the Powder Group Conversations with Orlando Santiago on a career in makeup. As always, this program is sponsored by our amazing brands, Senna Cosmetics, Beekman 1802, Cinema Secrets, Omnia, Muse Beauty Pro, and Skindinavia. Without those guys, we are not here doing this program. So please be sure to show their gratitude when you guys are out there in social media land and at any of our programs. Orlando Santiago, hello, my friend. How are you?
Hey, hi, I'm good. I'm very good. How are
You
you,
you
Michael?
you are very good, and you are very busy, and you have been such an inspiration to keep an eye on and watch for our community over the last 12, 14 months as the pandemic hit. We talk about pivot in this pandemic. We talk about people evolving and shifting, and I say, Orlando was pivoting before pivoting was a pivot thing. Like it was like you have always just said, I'm not sure here, let's go here. And that's one of the things I think is most exciting about your career and why I'm most excited to talk to you today, because I feel like right now people are in this place, right? They're in this place where, there's a big question mark over a lot of people's heads. Some people are working again, some people aren't. We're not out of it yet, but we're getting there. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel,
Yep.
but it's sometimes a little dimmer for other people. And sometimes it goes out and sometimes it goes back on. And it's just a kind of crazy time. But what I've been so impressed by with you over the 15 plus years that I've been your friend and worked with you and appreciated and been inspired by you is you are always, I don't want to say one step ahead, but you are always looking at what comes next. You're never satisfied just going like, well, this is what it is and this is what it's going to be. So I want to talk about that a little bit because I think it's helpful. But I always start with this question in this series because I think it's a fun one. And it's funny, someone posted about this in a different group, a non-makeup group that I'm in, about what did you want to be when you grew up? Why haven't you gotten there? I was like, well, I kind of got there a little bit. I wanted to be an actor and an author, and I wanted to be, a teacher. So I'm a teacher and I'm kind of an author, and I mean, one could say I'm an actor half the time. But for me, I always want to know for the creatives in my world, like when you were young, what did you want to be? What did little Orlando want to be when he grew up?
You know, all right. So I guess I would have to say I was born with really bad asthma, chronic asthma, from birth. I mean, I literally in the hospital every week, according to like what my mom used to tell me, and then what I could remember. So I was in the hospital so much that I actually knew doctors by name. So I was there and I almost in a weird way associated the hospital with home because I was there so much,
Huh.
that I saw that as like, oh wow, I like how the doctors are saving lives, or I like how the doctors are helping people. Or so I guess the idea of helping people started there. So I thought I wanted to be a doctor, and that's kind of the path that I went in. Doing like, my undergrad was all math and science and anatomy, and it was fantastic. And I actually fell in love with that part, which later I used in makeup. Um, but it made sense why that was kind of like what was built in me, I guess, the helping people part. And then of course the anatomy part, you know what I mean, kind of I used later as an artist, but that was my initial, I guess, run, my goal. um
Wow.
yeah.
Dr. Santiago, it's a good ring. It's a good ring. Selena's like, yeah, I like that. So how did you go from Orlando, who wanted to be a doctor or wanted to help people, to realizing there was a way to do that maybe within the makeup realm? Or how did you first get started in makeup at all?
I didn't know anything about the makeup realm. I just knew that, even up until like I started, my first job was with Dior, and that was something that I still had no idea what I was doing. It was more like somebody just brought me on, thought I looked like I could be molded into a makeup artist, had no idea if I was actually artistically driven, and then just gave me a shot. And during that time, I was already in school for, my pre-med, all that stuff was done here, while I was going to UCF before going back to New York. Once I actually started that, I would say part-time job at a makeup counter at Dillard's, yeah, with Dior, then I realized I don't want to do the medical part anymore. Like I love helping people and I still want to, and I love that part. I feel like that's fulfilling in what I'm doing now as this little part-time makeup thing. But I definitely want to go more artistic. So that's when I decided to move back to New York, and I got accepted into FIT because I had pretty good grades. And then I just went into like a business program because I felt like the art I know I'm going to get, and I could see it unfolding if I stayed with like a company that would do that. That's when I met you and Mac in, I think, late 90s, 99, right? Ooh.
That year, remember, it was that year.
Yes,
That
yes.
year.
So then that's when that happened. And ironically enough, you lived right across the street from FIT, which was funny because I went to a party and then I realized, oh, Mike's right there. Like, that's cool, with Bianca. I remember all that. So that was so crazy. Yeah. So then that's how that whole thing progressed. So I decided to go to school to go into the business part of fashion because I didn't want to be a broke artist.
Amazing. And
And
then you decided after that
that's
to
still
become
my
a broke
philosophy
artist.
today.
It all comes back, right? You've got to follow that passion. You got to follow that passion. Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, FIT is Fashion Institute of Technology. It's a school in Manhattan that focuses on the fashion arts and cosmetics programs. It is oddly not a makeup school. You can't take a makeup course there, but it's the business side of that industry. So let's talk about, okay, we had some time at Mac. So many of us did. You had time at Dior. You went to school. And then you busted into this sort of world of freelance a little bit. What was the first time after you got out of FIT, or maybe it was when you were there, where you thought to yourself, oh, wait a minute, I'm a makeup artist. Like, I'm not on the business side, I'm a makeup artist. Was there a memorable job? Was there a moment?
So that's when the black and the white started to really kick in. Like, I feel like there was a gray, but I didn't know what gray was. So like there was the business side, which is like the operation side and how does this makeup company make money? Great. And then there was the artistry side, which was like, it was all about like, they didn't know anything. They didn't even know how to like ring the register. They just know how to paint faces. And I was like, wait a minute, there's got to be this middle, right? So like, that's where the middle was. And I was like, well, funny because if I kind of combine the two, I feel like if I freelance a little bit, after I left Mac and I was like, there's some education in there, like maybe that people don't understand. So like here, my wheels are turning with like, what can I do or how can I take this outside of this like makeup counter, but still maybe financially live off of it. So that's where, the introduction to like, assisting came in and like, working for a rate, but it's not counter, it's not the makeup counter, it's somewhere else. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm working with other artists, either assisting or just doing jobs. And now it's like my art for money. Like, so this was really started to unfold and make sense that there's more to than just the counter. And at that time, it was really just either the counter or you were literally a celebrity makeup artist. There was no real in between yet. Besides bridal and freelancing and all the other stuff, except for film and TV, but that's a whole nother realm. So there was that in between freelancing, and I felt like that was the move. I wanted to finish off with school, but I also knew that I didn't want to stay at a counter base necessarily. And I opened myself up to it. I just kind of, I think it was the envision, just like envisioning yourself somewhere else, and everything just really started to unfold and happen that way. And that's when I got with the agency, and then so that sort of was part of still freelancing, so
I think there's two parts to that you just said. You kind of melded it together, but really you have to have two factors to do what you did. You had to be open,
yeah,
right? And you also had to look for it. You had to like say like, okay, what is it? It's not, I always talk about, envisioning things, the people who are, about, I'm forgetting the word, but willing something. I'm like, that's great. You can look in the mirror every day and say, this is going to happen, but you have to do the work. And you also have to be ready for the work and open to the work that comes to you, even if it isn't what's expected, because that might be the path you're supposed to go on. And as I said before, I've always been so impressed with your ability to be fluid and your ability to translate your love for artistry and helping and educating into different sorts of roles. So I want to talk a little bit about that. a love of makeup artistry and the craft and the product is core, right? I mean, we both say this as educators. If you don't love this, go find something you love. It's too hard a job.
Absolutely.
It's too hard a job. You're not going to get rich right away. Like, get a job that you love, and you love this job. Tell me this: you have evolved your career to so many different places over the years. You've been a makeup artist, freelancer, you've done editorial, you've been a teacher, you owned a school and a studio. You had a corporate role as a national artist for Galan. When do you know it's time for Orlando Santiago to take a shift or move into something else?
Ooh. First of all, I think it's like this little voice, right? But I feel like, eventually you have to figure out what that voice is. And I would say on one part, it's definitely, you feel like the passion is sort of slipping from where you are at the moment. It's not as strong, it's not as heavy, it's not as driving. So that means that there's something that's a red flag, number one, for me. Like, if you're starting to see that you're getting either bored or complacent, or something's not making sense or adding up anymore, I feel like that's a flag. Pay attention to it. But then the second one, I think, for me, is more about my mindset. It's all about mindset and like being open. Your mind is like a bowl. Everything you see here goes into that bowl, and not everything is good for you. Not everything is necessary. Some things you have to weed out. So I feel like when I guess my intellectual mind and my emotional mind don't see eye to eye anymore. Like, meaning my passion, like the emotional passion behind what I'm doing at that moment, and my intellectual as to why I should be there, are not seeing eye to eye. If they are there, that means that my intellectual, my emotional will drive my body to then be determined to stay there and go there and stay there and be that person in the moment for the season or the reason or the time period. But I feel like when that intellectual part says, Orlando, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Doesn't meet that emotional impact anymore of, is this really what you want to do? Or is this really helping people the way it used to? Then there's something's missing, and it's time to check out, or just be open again to seeing what's next, and or how can you evolve. And I guess the word pivot is what we were using earlier. Pivot, but still not go too far outside of your zone. Like, my zone is makeup and business of makeup, and the idea, everything of helping people. So as long as I don't go too far outside of that, but I can basically jump into anything else that's nearby. It might be different, but it still ties into, it doesn't go against, let's just say, that the core of who I am. Then I'm willing to do it. And everything that you've mentioned that I guess I've been a part of has always, the core of it was still makeup. You know what I mean? No matter what it was, whether it's freelancing or, editorial, or an agency, or even just with Guerlain, it was still, the core was makeup, but it was so many different facets of it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like every single part of it was that next connection of the intellectual and the emotional mind that drove my body and gave me those results. You know what I mean? So and I think that's what people need to pay attention to, because if you think of something that you want to do, but if your emotion is not behind it, like, I don't know, the Wright brothers, the intellect was like, I want to fly, but there was nothing to fly. So they had to see it first, and then the emotion behind it drove them to create something that got them in the air, which is now being used as a plane. You know what I mean? Sometimes your vision doesn't make sense because it's a little bit too far ahead.
Right.
But then when the two are connected, then you'll find the answer, and actually the universe will bring it to you, because now you're in the same vibration level as your vision.
It's interesting because I think, we call it like the hamster wheel, right? If you get stuck in the hamster wheel, you're going, especially right now, right? Because right now so many people would just be happy to be able to get back in the hamster wheel because they're not working, or they're not working as much as they used to. And they the idea of just continuing to keep moving, making some revenue, doing your job, maybe not feeling completely satisfied anymore, maybe not feeling as inspired or passionate about something as you used to, but instead of looking outside for other options, just continuing to do that thing because it's what it's what is easier. And I don't mean easy because it's easy to be a freelance makeup artist, easier than starting over with something new. Yeah. So I love this idea that you said, everything was based in makeup, right? For me, I don't do makeup. I love makeup artists. I love the brands. I love to connect people. I love the craft. I love the projects. I don't love to do makeup. I don't do makeup. For me, it's not about makeup. It's about support and connectivity
Yeah.
and inspiring, right? So it's very interesting. You just gave me a moment where I'm going like, oh, see, I can move outside of that realm, provided what is my core? That's your question you're asking. What is my core? What is the base? Yours is makeup in some way, right? Mine is different than that, although it laps into makeup and primarily focuses in our industry. So I think that that's really interesting. And I think that right now there's so many people who, whether you decided in the beginning of the pandemic to make masks and sell them to make some revenue, or you decided to, go into a different field during the pandemic because you weren't making money as a makeup artist, you have to ask yourself now, like, what did I miss? Like, did I miss it? Like, do I want it still? Like, am I still passionate about it? And if not, or if it's waning, like you said, then maybe it is time to find that evolution. Do you always wait for those moments to come to you, Orlando? Or do you sometimes say like, okay, I'm not feeling it right now. I'm going to start looking and seeing what else is out there?
No, I don't wait till I feel like the moment you feel overwhelmed by that desire to no longer be there, it's already not too late, but you've let a lot of time pass. Trust me, there's a lot of flags and red flags that go off during the process of transition. And if you don't listen to them, it's just an accumulation, and that at the very end weighs the heaviest upon you. And sometimes it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel when everything you've waited so long for all those red flags to build up, and now they're just sitting on your head. So I feel like as these little milestones or little mile markers start to appear, red flags here, red flags there, again, the process of just identifying it doesn't mean you know what to do with it, but I just know that, oh, I'm at this flag right now. What could this mean? Let me open it up to see what this could be or where it could take me. And then let's see where it's going. And then maybe another month or 90 days down the road, you hit another sort of like a similar pattern. You're starting to see a lot of things that are kind of gearing you towards, there's something in life that's saying, hey, the new path might be over there. Like there's a lot of ways to get there, but this one right now for this time period might be that one. And here you are trying to go over, just like climb a wall and all that, when there's just like a door, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that guide you. So
you just dropped that one right in our lap, didn't you? You're trying to climb over the wall, but you didn't realize there's a door.
Yeah.
Like, or maybe the wall's not that long and you just got to go walk to the right a little bit and you could walk right around it.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
You're so focused on this is it and this is the way. Let me ask you this. One of the things that, that right there, like literally, I'm like, I got a moment. It's like, damn it. So here's my question for you. You have been an educator in so many capacities, right? You're on school. You have educated for the makeup show. You've educated for the powder group. You've educated Evolution, Makeup 101 coming up in a couple of weeks. What is it about educating that keeps you coming back to it? Even at Guerlain, you're educating your client. Like you're a teacher in your heart.
I think that, so one thing I've learned, especially this last year, is that you cannot move into a place of, I guess, abundance. Let's just say that, or you cannot move into the place of abundance, or the level of abundance that's there waiting for you is only measured by the gratitude you currently have. So in other words, when you give more, I'm grateful that I was able to teach so many people over these 20 plus years, because that is actually what has kept me still relevant. The more I've given and poured myself out into others is the fact that, somehow, some way, that gratitude was measured by the abundance that I'm still able to sit here with you so many years after, and James and, Danessa, and just everybody else who's been around for so long in our industry, and also been friends, that we've given so much that, in a sense, that's what drives me. Again, that was my core. So like when I said in the beginning, the fact that I can start a makeup career, but still keep it core, which was like I said, I was in the hospital a, a doctor was helping me, and I said, well, whatever I do when I grow up, I want to make sure that I help others. It's still at the core of who I am. And so as long as I'm helping others, whether it's through makeup or through financial breakthroughs or through, just even as artistry, like, your color theory or whatever kind of breakthroughs, aha moments, that I know that they can take that and now run with it, and it gives them like a tool that will get them through their career or to their life or something, some way that is of impact. I'm happy. And I'm not looking for anything in return. I really am not. Trust me. Like, we all know this. Um, Meaning, as far as the career of makeup, you said it wasn't very easy, and at times it could have been very struggling financially, but we still did it because of our passion. And so,
Yeah.
knowing that there's so many, I guess, hundreds or thousands of students out there with a piece of our education that is still sitting within them, that for me is like everything. I'm happy.
It is it's a pretty big deal to have legacy like that, and to be able to share who you are and what you do and what you know with people. That's pretty amazing. And you mentioned challenges, you mentioned financial struggles. What are some challenges that you have faced through your career? And obviously we've all faced lots of different challenges.
Yeah.
Was there any point where you felt like, this is too deep. Like, I got it. I can't do this anymore. I'm giving up. Like, I'm moving. I'm going to go get a job. I call it job. I'm going to get a job instead of my passion. Like, I'm not going to do my thing anymore. I'm going to get a job. So I don't have to deal with this. Has Orlando Santiago ever been in that space?
Yeah. Yeah. Because you know what? It's not just Orlando Santiago, it's Orlando Santiago plus family. And so at the end of the day, I had to learn to put my pride aside, even if I had to, or move into that space. Because at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're doing the right thing by knowing that you need to provide for your family. It doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter when or where. And if you needed to get a job, I had one. Girl On was the job. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Kind of, because it was corporate. I was not able to really do as much as I wanted to do, especially with the makeup show and TPG, because I was on a flight every week. And for things that, again, yeah, I was providing for my family and I was in makeup and I was a corporate executive, but was it really at the core of, the passion and doing things that I wanted to do? I couldn't even use any other brand. So I was very restricted,
Yeah.
with that paycheck, that steady paycheck, right? So that was a job for me that, I had to basically eat for 3.5 years up until that transition. Then I decided to break away from that during the pandemic, and then come down here, which also wasn't easy because I basically lost it all. But knowing, that I would obviously go from that was sort of stable and consistent, to then saying, well, what's more important now? 3.5 or 4 more years of that again, or moving to Florida where my family and I want to buy a house and buy, what I mean, and just live and live in a space where our minds can now thrive. Everything else, and I didn't need to know the how, I just needed to know the why. These were my whys. You know what I mean? The how will come, it always does, and I just needed to make that decision based on my why, not my how.
It's a hard decision to make too, because uh, I think people get real caught up in. I'm going to use the word ego. I don't mean ego like I feel really filled with ego. I mean, we get caught up in ego, like, if I've committed to this, if I've said I'm doing this, if I'm going to be this big artist, if I'm going to do $1,000 bride, if I'm going to get a cover of a magazine, if I'm going to teach at the makeup show, um, then that's what is my thing. And if I don't do that, or I turn away from it, that somehow makes me feel less. And what you're saying is that doesn't make you feel less, that makes you feel more, because you're actually finding what is truth and what is important, and making decisions based on that.
Exactly. And those decisions impact, in other words, of course my wife and of course the kids know that yes, Guerlain is no longer on the table, that stable, 6-figure salary is gone. But can I tell you, the level of support that I've had since then from them was actually now more than I did when I was away 5 to 6 days a week.
Wow.
And it's just different. So now I'm in line and aligned with them in a different way, whereas before I was not. You know what I mean? I was just in, like you call it, the rat race, and which is, again, it served a purpose. It gave me my home. It did whatever. But you also need to understand, where is that line? How far, how long, what do I need to do, and how do, if I need to do it, no ego aside, put your ego on the shelf for a moment, and just, do what you have to do, right, for you, yourself, and your family. But also know that there's an expiration date. It's not, you're not going to stay in the valley of despair forever. It's like, it has a time frame, it has a window.
I'm gonna go back and listen to this as soon as we put it on YouTube, and I'm gonna write everything down. The value sphere. Are you kidding me? Absolutely. It isn't going to last forever. And you're
No.
right. And also, your evolution adds to your value sphere. It lengthens and broadens your value sphere. It makes it more, feasible that people will see you as an active participant if you're not just doing the same thing that you've been doing and in that same role and that same energy for so long. Shifting and moving and changing does add, from my perspective, to your value, and it makes a more interesting part of a community. It makes you a more interesting part of an organization. Let me ask you this. You've been in the industry a long time. I said 15 years I've known you before, but then thinking back at Mac, it's easily over 20. You've been in this industry a long time. What would you say is the thing, take social media out of it, because we all know that's a big shift. What is the thing that's changed the most in the industry since you started out as a freelance makeup artist?
Great question. I mean, there's so many facets to it. I think it's just a matter of, for me, actually, take away social media, but social media is really the part that has changed it the most, because the dynamics, quality of makeup and high def and technology, I would say, has evolved and made, your eye and your precision and the quality better. But it's the way, the perception and how it's been marketed basically has been the biggest difference, because you can reach the masses right now without having, before we all knew what a marketing budget was, right? Every company had it, and you had to have X amount of dollars, and it went everywhere. And it's like, now it's like we are our own marketing budget. My bank account is my own marketing budget. I can throw an ad into Instagram and stuff. So I feel like that's the part where I'm happy, but it's also a double-edged sword, because the person that never would have ever had a shot back in our early 2000s, up until social media really evolved, now has that platform.
Right.
Because, there's anybody from anywhere who's talented has the ability to, level out the playing fields and showcase their talent, and get it out there and be exposed immediately, like so fast. And I think that's fantastic. But on the flip side, there's a lot of other stuff that comes along with it too. You know what I mean? So that's the part where it kind of pulled both, like it took the industry and just pulled it both in direction, and pulled it in both directions, really, just really stretched it out. So now everything is really opposite. You know what I mean? It's never in the middle anymore. It's just like there's a super positive side, but there's also a super negative side, where a lot of less or mediocre, or even people who have probably taken all of our classes over the last 15 years, are the ones that are there, because they had a little bit more of a budget to put towards their social media campaigns or whatever, or followers. And then they got to this point where now they're just like these, the gods of makeup. And I'm like, let me go back in my Facebook photo and find out when you were sitting in my color theory class, or James's, or, you know what I mean? Should I really pull that card? But I won't, because it's going to be a shade.
Well, you kind of just did. But yeah. No naming names.
But yeah, so I think that was the biggest impact of the change of our makeup career, that I've seen over the past. But I mean, technique wise too, of that nature. But you know what you know.
Yeah, it's true. And it's interesting, because even speaking about social media, it is that, I say not social media because it's the obvious one, but that also gets you to think about, well, what about social media? It's not just that it existed. It's the pieces of it that allow, I'm not going to say adequate skill sets to bake and strobe and, use color correction, because that was a thing on Instagram. Are you kidding? Like,
no
literally,
contouring. Who they invented contouring just came out like 5 years ago.
Thank goodness for it too, because I'm really starting to need it right here and here. So let me ask you this: how do you? We only have a few minutes left, but a couple more questions. How do you grow as an artist? Because you are someone who is the inspirer, the teacher. What do you do to grow?
Ooh, again, I don't think I do anything different than most people, or even like, for example, and this is a great plug for you guys if who haven't gone to evolution or elevation, because I always had that capability. I just didn't know how to harness it and make sense out of it. So if you are going to evolution and elevation, you'll see after that it makes sense, because Michael and James and the educators know how to, and I'm an educator too, so like I was being educated by these guys on something I knew nothing on how to organize. So it doesn't have to be makeup driven necessarily, but I feel like that's the point. It makes sense to take all your great ideas, because we all have them, but how can we take it? And for me, like I said, mine is just combining that intellectual, like, you are this guy, you want to go here in life, XYZ, and then matching it with my emotional impact and saying, okay, but is there passion behind it?
Right.
So I want to do this. I want to get emotionally attached to that so that I don't let it go. And I think that's the danger. The danger is out of sight, out of mind. When you don't realize, when you're not in tune with it anymore, when it doesn't, wake you up at 5 a.m. every day, when it's no longer a passion, when you forget about it, it's the danger zone. That's when you have to go back and be like, what happened?
Right.
Where is it? And I feel like that's where you got to really start checking and looking and making sure. So that when I start feeling that is, Michael's, when I really start looking at, okay, what can I do in the next at least 2 to 5 years, right? Hint. And then what can I do in the next 6 to 9 months to get to those 2 to 5 years? Do they overlap? Does it make sense? So it's a lot of that going on all the time, especially now in my current situation. I'm happy I did that, and I'm just happy I'm moving in that direction, because again, at the end of the day, it's about ideas that come to fruition, not just die. I need to make them happy. I need to make them relevant. I need to make them exist. So
All that, all of that, for real. And you're right. It does take it takes stepping back. And someone asked me about elevation. Someone who's been a part of the powder group for many years. I said, I'm not staying focused in makeup anymore. Like, I'm
and that's
still part of
okay.
the crew. Then they're like, is evolution elevation? Like, elevation is like I don't do makeup, and I elevated elevation. So it's a great program for that. You're right. And I think stepping back and then allowing yourself that moment, and this, like, before people come to evolution, we say, don't have ideas about what you want to accomplish at evolution, right? Just come and let us take you on that journey and then see where you end up. And the same with elevation. I think, if someone isn't participating in evolution or elevation, you can do this on your own. You can pull yourself outside of your realm, and you can say to yourself, okay, erase the blackboard, erase all the stuff. If I was starting from now, what would I do? What would I create? What would it be? What would
Right.
the next 10 years be? Right.
Exactly.
Last question, and I will let you go back to your day. You're a busy man, got lots of hustling and building businesses to do. If you were speaking to someone who was just getting started in our industry,
Yep.
just getting started in the career of makeup artistry, and they said to you, what is something that maybe you wish you knew then that you know now? What's something you want to make sure people know before they get into this business?
About makeup, just in the career of
About the
makeup.
career. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, you may not know how to get there, but just make a decision. And
Mm.
I think that's the easiest thing I can probably tell you. Make a decision and stay committed to the decision, because when you don't commit is when you're saying you're not putting a deep enough foundation underneath this in order for this to even thrive and become a possibility in your life, to withstand all the hardships, to withstand all the things that are going to come your way. I feel like that's why all of us, shout out to James, my brother, and everybody else who's been here for so many years, because at the end of the day, no matter what has happened, COVID, not COVID, freelance, not freelance, jobs, whatever things, what we've had to endure, we've made a decision. We've made a decision to commit, and we are basically here for life. And when you commit, everything else will follow. And but as long as you're committing, then nothing can break that bond between you and your commitment and your path. The minute you don't commit, you're just leaving a foothold or leaving holes. You're leaving holes that are really going to damage the pathway that you're, you know what I mean, that you're trying to sort of create, maybe, live a life of, or so on and so forth. So I just feel like that's the basis of it, is just, again, just not knowing what's going to happen, but just committing to it, so that, at the end of the day, I've committed to this, and I'm here forever, no matter what.
Staying committed,
Staying
and
committed.
this was great words to wrap by. This was a year that was tough for everybody, and easy to say, can't do this. And some people did, and that's cool. But if you've made the commitment and you've said, I'm going to keep moving through this, I said at the beginning of this in my sessions and coaching, there's either Orlando Santiago, makeup artist after the pandemic, or there's Orlando Santiago who used to be a makeup artist. Make that decision now, commit to it, and then work toward it. Amazing information. Thank you, my friend. Always a pleasure to see you, even if it's virtually. Thank you for everything you've been doing for our community this year. And I look forward to finally getting together in person. I hope maybe in June for Elevation, you can be joining us. It's going to be an amazing week. And I'm so grateful that you were here with me today to share your career in makeup. Everybody, this has been the Powder Group Conversations with Orlando Santiago on a career in makeup. Our sponsors are Senna Cosmetics, Beekman 1802, Cinema Secrets, Omnia, Muse Beauty Pro, and Skindinavia. This will be live on, well, it won't be live. This will be up on our YouTube channel starting tomorrow, and hopefully on our podcast soon. So thank you, Orlando. Love you, my friend. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe out there, everybody.